Yo, JP, and I talk today about flat fees in complex, high-stakes litigation. So let's just get right into it, okay? These days, we litigate non-compete cases, trade secret, fiduciary duty, partnership breakups, unfair competition, that whole wheelhouse. We litigate those types of cases exclusively on a flat fee basis, meaning we refuse to accept those types of engagements on an hourly billable basis. These are cases, right? Like, I'm not talking like my poor people non-compete cases. A lot of people don't understand, right? Like, yeah, I go out and do a lot of pro bono, low bono, non-compete defense, and I've done that for many years. But that's not my bread and butter, right? That doesn't pay the bills, keep the lights on, etc. Like that, we do the big dog, non-compete, trade secret, unfair competition, partnership breakup, company breakup, etc. We do those cases exclusively on a flat fee basis. Okay, let's start here, right, with the sort of first premise. Law has for decades now, 100 plus years, run on this billable model. And one of the things that model has done is to create perverse incentives. I see it all the time, okay? And apparently it is frowned upon in this establishment to speak the truth about the greed and corruption and machinations of law and various lawyers and law firms. Apparently it's a violation of the omerta, right? None of us are supposed to admit that like this thing, right, exists in law, but it does, and everybody knows. Everybody knows there's tremendous greed and corruption and dysfunction in the legal system, litigation, law firms, etc. Everybody knows. So pretending like it doesn't exist, well, that's just bullshit. Okay, there are so many lawyers and so many law firms out there that churn cases. They bill, baby, bill. You might remember that, right? If you're my age, you've been practicing law for 10, 15, 20 years. There was a whole scandal that broke where a big law firm was in a fee dispute with a former client, and some emails came to light where certain lawyers at the firm were talking about like churning the file and racking up hours and just bill, baby, bill the hell out of it, right? That's a real thing, okay? There are lawyers in law firms who are notorious for just dumping hours into cases. Why? Well, it's billable, it's hourly, right? The more hours, the more money you make, right? Come up with some work to do. What is the favorite thing, okay? The favorite thing that corporate lawyers, management side lawyers, big law lawyers like to do to create a bunch of extra work? Well, I'm going to give you a couple like specific concrete pieces of the litigation process where they will just pour time and money into it. Let's start from the beginning, right? One, if there's any kind of preliminary injunction, temporary restraining order, right? That's an emergency, right? Yeah, you broke away from a company, you, 7 other people, you started a competitor, you're starting to ramp up, like you're on pace to make $20 million that year. Oldco comes after you, they're trying to get a temporary restraining order or a preliminary injunction. Like, this is not theoretical, like we litigate this type of shit, okay? The typical law firm is going to want that engagement on a billable hour basis because they have the ability to say, this is a fucking emergency, okay? It's bet the company, all gloves are off, the stakes are so high, like we just have to do whatever we have to do, and by the way, we're gonna bill the fuck out of it, okay? That's a classic business strategy, right? It's a crisis, all bets are off, we just have to do whatever we have to do, pull out all the stops, leave no stones unturned. And a lot of companies fall for that. A lot of sophisticated litigants fall for that because they're like, well, I guess so, right? I guess there's no other way to do it. Nah, it's nonsense. Of course there is, right? Like, once you've done this long enough and at a high enough level in complex enough cases, you have the ability to look at the case, look at the facts, right? Get a handle on the client, figure out, do you trust the client? Do you believe the client? Do your due diligence? And then you can fashion a flat fee arrangement, obviously with escape clauses and sort of, whatever else you need to put in there to build in reasonable protections for both the law firm and for the client, okay? And that's how we litigate these cases, flat fee arrangement, all day, every day, okay? But one, you have the emergency, right? If it's an emergency, if it's urgent, if it's high stakes, then it's like, hey, gloves off, bet the company, we just have to bill as many hours as necessary. Well, it doesn't have to be that way, okay? That's one. Two, discovery. Discovery has become basically the rock candy mountain of BIGLAW. It is a billing hour pit. It's a gold mine, right? Let's set it up, right? Let's set it up so that we request 6 million different types of documents, okay? We want to scour the earth for all of these documents. And we're going to spend a lot of time preparing those requests and negotiating and haggling with the other side over the scope of those requests. And then when we finally get the documents produced to us, we can bill the hell out of the case for reviewing the documents, analyzing them, evaluating them, etc. You realize, it started to fall off and to come down. But for the longest time in BIGLAW, one of their most absurd profit centers was document review. They would literally intentionally go after hundreds of thousands or millions of documents, get those documents produced, and then bill hundreds of dollars an hour for reviewing what were almost entirely unnecessary documents, right? And because so many people who inhabit this space, right? And yes, that includes like general counsels and associate general counsels and deputy general counsels at big companies. So many people that inhabit this space are basically risk-averse pussies who have no guts and no judgment. And so they fall for we had to scour the earth, right? We could have missed something. We had to scour the earth, right? Like that kind of logic, that kind of sales pitch does not work with people who know what the heck they're doing, right? Like, doesn't work with me, right? But I could be general counsel of a Fortune 50 company if I wanted to be, and if I was on that side. I outright would be, okay? Everybody knows it, okay? And you could never cook me on that, right? I'd be like, no, we're not going after all these damn documents. We don't freaking need them, okay? I'm not going to pay for this freaking children's crusade, like billable hour boondoggle to go gather up hundreds of thousands of unnecessary documents that I know are fuck all nothing, okay? I want this limited universe of documents right here, okay? I'm going to tailor my specific request, the language I use. I'm going to be super reasonable. I just want this stuff right here. Okay, XYZ, that's it, right? Rather than give me everything, millions of documents, we'll review it at hundreds of dollars an hour, right? Just millions of dollars, just burned, setting money on fire, okay? That was a major profit center in BIGLAW for the longest time. What else? Major profit center. Over briefing, okay? Or motion practice where the firm or the lawyers are going over the top, right? Spending literally hundreds of hours on a motion. And I'm not talking, this is an antitrust case where there's $1 billion at issue and the litigation is so complex and there are so many different facets of it and legal questions and, complex areas of law. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking the sort of like, yeah, high stakes, but not like beyond, right? You're getting to a massive $1 billion antitrust case or a huge class action or something like that. I'm talking like, right, you got a $10 million, $20 million partnership breakup case, okay, where it's like, yeah, there are some legal complexities and things to be wrangled, but it's not like in a different universe where it's so complex, okay? I've seen cases where somebody files a motion to dismiss, it has zero chance of being granted. The law is absolutely clear. And yet, the law firm that is billing hourly, quite obviously, files a 30-page motion to dismiss. Who does that, right? Who does that? It gets summarily denied, waste of time and money, but they probably spent 50 hours on it, 60 hours on it. One person did a draft, somebody else reviewed it and revised it. It went up the food chain multiple times. There were several iterations. And you just do the math, you know? That's just a exercise in billing hours, okay? But so when you look at that whole model, all right, in terms of, oh, it's a crisis, oh, it's high stakes, gloves are off, like we just have to go as hard as we can, it's bet the farm, right? It's going to cost an arm and a leg, but we're fighting for so much, it doesn't matter, right? Traditional corporate law firms love that. They love that because they feel like that gives them cover, you know? That gives them cover. That's the same with discovery, right? Where they play the, well, we have to scour the earth and leave no stone unturned because we could miss something, okay? And if we miss something because you wouldn't let us do World War III nuclear discovery, well, then you can't blame us, and we get a get out of jail free card. So much of this is bullshit, greed, lack of ethics, lack of character, poor judgment, right? It all goes the same direction, you know? We litigate these types of cases on a flat fee basis, you know? We're going after the stuff in discovery that I reasonably feel we should be going after. And no, I have no interest in having the other side dump 1 million pages of documents on me. I'm not going to request that crap, and I don't want that crap because it's a waste of damn time and money, okay? Like very targeted, very targeted. Where else, right? Depositions. Depositions. You know, so many of these lawyers, they never actually do like an injunction hearing where they put on live witnesses and cross-examine, and they never actually try a case and sort of put witnesses on the stand. So for them, a deposition is like, that's a big thing, you know? That's their big thing, you know, getting in the big chair, right? Ooh. And what they do in terms of depositions is it's like everything else, right? Do you start to see a pattern emerging? You see a pattern emerging? It's an exercise in billing hours, right? They prep for 10 hours. They write outlines for X hours. They take the actual deposition and it lasts 7.5 hours. They bill for a 10-hour day because they were there for 10 hours with breaks, right? You see how all of this works? It all goes the same direction. It's like, no, you're not smoking something. No, you're not crazy. This really is a system and a model that was set up for big law firms and corporate law firms to bill hours. Yes, there are some very good lawyers, you know, very good corporate side lawyers, management side lawyers. I work with lots of them. We just had a case, big corporate side law firm on the other side. Outstanding lawyer was at the top of that team. She does a lot of class action defense, but outstanding lawyer. Obviously not hard up for business, has tons of clients, tons of business, tons of work. She's just trying to solve the problem, get it done, keep it moving, right? Protect her client's interest, get a reasonable deal, or go the distance if she has to, right? There are plenty of lawyers like that out there, but you're smoking something if you don't believe that there's a very large segment of the population among corporate side lawyers, management side lawyers, big law firm lawyers who are not motivated by a desire to solve the problem, to protect their client's interests, to actually be a fiduciary, an advisor, to provide guidance and proper counsel to their clients. There are so many lawyers out there whose number one and sometimes sole motivation is to bill more hours. And they look at everything in a case. They look at every case and they look at every aspect of a case as an opportunity to bill more hours. And when we step back, kind of a broader level picture, okay, the legal system, the court system protects this. They nurture it because when you get into like Lodestar, okay, it's how fees are awarded. It's called Lodestar. They check against Lodestar. They always check like the amount of hours against an hourly rate. That is so folksy, old-timey, regressive trash that just has to go, okay? You should be able to look at a case. You should be able to look at what got done, what the results were, what the outcome was, etc., right? Or putting the outcome aside, like what work went into it. When that comes up, it only comes up if you prevail, okay? That's when it comes up. You prevail. You go into court. There's either a statutory or a contractual basis for you to recover your attorney's fees as the prevailing party. You move for prevailing party fees, and then the court, says, okay, and figure out what you're entitled to in fees. They always want, how many hours did you work, and what are the rates, right? That's just old-timey, regressive nonsense, okay? If you win a case, okay, the court should be able to look at it and say, here's the type of case this was. Here's how complicated it was. Here's the amount of work that you did. Here's how obstinate or ridiculous the other side was or was not in terms of creating extra work. And then here's the results you got, right? We can award a reasonable fee that we can come up with and articulate, okay? And that fee shouldn't necessarily be hours, It shouldn't be hours times a billable rate. None of that should matter. It should just be, what was the case? What was the work done? What was the outcome? What sounds reasonable, right? Because then you're literally wasting time billing hours and tracking hours, right? Paraphrase Tupac, real G's do what they want. Not real G's do what they can. No real G wants to bill hours. Sorry, homie. It's a waste of my time. It's a waste of my energy. Waste of my life force. Okay? You got better things to do. So the point of sort of this conversation today is that it is entirely possible to design flat fee structures that are not only appropriate in complex high-stakes cases, but that are fair, that are good business, that work for both the firm and the client, that align incentives and that everybody can feel good about. And when you look and you survey the landscape of law and sort of commercial litigation, high-stakes litigation, especially in the commercial arena, the non-compete, trade secrets, et cetera, this type of stuff, it is basically a buffet of billable hours. And the incentives are all wrong. And a lot of litigants, including sophisticated ones and companies, they are getting taken to the cleaners by lawyers whose first and sometimes only goal in litigation is to get those billable hours. And I've discussed some of the specific phases of litigation or projects or buckets where the dumping or churning of hours tends to be the most egregious. So where does this go? Okay. Over the next 3 or 4 years, we are going to see an exponential rise in the use of flat fees in complex litigation. And a big part of this is going to be driven by AI. AI is going to, right now it sucks, okay, but it's coming. It's coming. And the next few iterations of sort of legal tech AI, in the next 2 or 3 years, we're going to see such advances that it is going to allow firms to retool and restructure, the model. The good firms, right? The firms who are going to stay ahead of the curve. Because there are so many aspects of litigation where big law firms, corporate law firms have just been dumping hours and just churning billable hours. There are so many aspects of litigation where that's been taking place that are going to be replaced by AI, where you will no longer be able to justify billing hundreds of hours on X when AI can do it, or do 90% of it, and then just be quality controlled by a lawyer at a fraction of the cost. So I see law firms, especially big law firms, investing heavily in legal tech and AI, because they're going to realize that the billable rock candy mountain buffet is rapidly coming to an end. Now, there will be some judges who are, gosh darn it, adamant that the proper way to structure fees is the old-timey billable hour model, and that's what they want. They want to see the number of hours, and they want to see the rate, because by gummit, that's how they did it, and that's how their daddy did it, and that's how their daddy's daddy did it, and that's how it's always been done. But you can't put it back in the box, right? Like, it's already here, okay? It's already here. It's not going to go back, right? As AI advances, as technology advances, we're going to see slowly the rise of alternative fee arrangements, including for complex litigation, the rise of flat fee agreements, including for complex litigation, and we're going to see a massive decline in the prevalence of billable hours. Right now, flat fees, are generally regarded as novel, or a relatively small share of the complex litigation market. And the typical explanation is always, oh, it's too complicated, there are too many variables, we could never figure out a fee. That's all nonsense, okay? Once you've done enough cases and done enough high stakes litigation, and you really get your mind around it, and you understand how to design and structure these things, and the different exceptions you need, and carve outs and escape clauses and success fees and sort of everything else, right? Like, you can do these in very sophisticated ways that guard against any sort of truly dramatic fluctuations. There are ways to do this, and as time goes, we're going to see flat fees go from being a very kind of novel, small part of the litigation market, the complex litigation, complex commercial litigation. We're going to see it, grow to the point where it sort of evens out, and you have half of the market is billable and half of the market is flat fee. And at a certain point in the next 5 to 10 years, I believe that flat fee arrangements will actually become the dominant arrangement, because litigants who are sophisticated, big companies, individuals, organizations who litigate a lot of cases, have a bunch of money to throw around, they're just going to put their foot down, and they're going to say, look, there are enough alternative options out there. There are enough good law firms, reputable lawyers, sophisticated experience. They do outstanding quality work, and they're willing to do it on a flat fee basis. And that pressure, I think, eventually is going to flip the market, and flat fees are going to become the dominant model for the delivery of legal representation in complex and high stakes litigation.